Welcome to Tiny Hands, Big Dreams, here on the homestead in southern Ecuador. We want to talk about animals and how many you need. This relates to homesteading, being self-sufficient, taking care of your own nutritional needs by way of meat.
And animal products.
Animal products. If you're one of the people that has been let down by the world as it exists and the sudden, like, oh my gosh, the grocery store has no meat, or the prices have skyrocketed and we can't afford it, or there's a lot of different scenarios to where maybe you just enjoy it. You're like, let's just live happily on our quiet little farm, raise our animals, take care of our own needs. We have no more problems. Well, how many animals?
So it's one of the big questions. People ask it all the time, and the answers are typically very specific.
3, 6, 1, and 4, and you're like,
okay, well,
no.
Either because you have experienced it, you would say, well, that wouldn't work for me. Or if you are just starting out, you might go, oh, okay, well, that's probably right. And that was probably right for whoever told you that. It is different for every person, every situation, every piece of land, everything.
It's not even right for whoever told you that. If you watch YouTubers, they'll say, oh, you know, we raise 1 pig every other year, and that takes care of our meat needs. And you're like, you eat half a pig a year? And you look at the weight, and you look at things, and you look at what they're eating, you're like, where are you getting your meat? So you're not, it doesn't take care of your meat needs, that's just the ones that you wanted to raise at home for
So we are looking at it from a full self-sufficiency standpoint. Our goal, our plan is to purchase 0 animal products at all, anywhere.
It's like the ultimate no grocery store challenge.
Except that's just our life. Or our goal is our life.
Which?
Yeah.
We're going to call it the ultimate no grocery store meat challenge.
Okay.
People love challenges.
You can call it that. I'm going to call it life.
And then you watch the people that actually do those challenges, and there's asterisks down the side of the screen that scrolls for days.
So we are currently, and I came up with these numbers because I'm the one who cooks. So I know how much meat we eat. He does not know.
She's also really good at the math.
He's always very surprised by how much I say he eats. We currently eat around 14 pounds of meat per week for a family of 3. Now, a family of 3 includes the 2 of us and an 11-year-old who out-eats both of us all the time. For reference.
He's been doing that for years.
For reference. And it will just increase as the years go on. Our goal of meat consumption is not less, it's more. I like how most people say their goal is like to eat less meat.
I want to eat less meat.
I want to eat more meat.
Yep.
So our goal is 25 pounds a week. I would probably put that at higher, but reasonably 25 pounds of meat a week.
Which divided by 7 gets you to 3 and a bit, 3.5 pounds a day.
If that's how you look at things.
If that's how you look at it, but at 3.5 pounds a day, maybe you have a little for breakfast. You have a little bit of bacon, maybe some sausage. Okay, times 3 people. That's a little bit. And you're like, lunch. Well, there's going to be like this. Whatever you're making for lunch, is there meat in it? Probably. Then you get to dinner. Are you going to have, like, again, a little piece of meat, so some pork, a stew, a stir fry, a thing, a burger, whatever it is. Is that a little bit of meat? Okay, well, you know, like, you add up, like, well, what's a couple of burgers? You're like, more than 1/3 of a pound times 3. That's a pound right there.
Yep.
Adds up pretty quick.
It does. So our goal is 25 pounds a week, which is 1,200 pounds a year.
Yes.
Which both seems like a lot and not enough. All right, we're going to go through a whole bunch of numbers. And we're going to have graphics, because I like visual aids when it comes to math. They help me.
They're good. They're good. They take a bunch of time to make.
That's okay, I'll do it.
So try and appreciate what she does.
I will give a preface to all of these numbers. When I talk about meat, like pounds of meat, this is because we butcher all of...
Actual meat. You could squish it in your hand.
No. Because we butcher all of our own animals, I process things in the way that works for us, which is basically pure meat. And then the bones are a separate weight, which I actually never weigh, that are for bone broth. Again, and the fat is separate. We were talking about meat.
When you buy a steak with a bone in it,
but meaty meat,
and it's a half-pound steak, and you're like, oh, I ate a half-pound steak. Did you eat the bone like a hyena? No, you didn't. You didn't eat that much meat.
The quarter or a third of a pound or something. So, and your USDA, if you look up your, I want to say your, hanging weight, your cuts, all of that is going to be bone in.
Cuts.
All of those are bone in. So they are going to be different if you try to compare those to my numbers. My numbers will technically be lower, but they're pure meat.
She goes and literally debones and removes every bit of meat
Just
off the bones.
everything. Yeah.
We also use the bones, make lovely bone broth.
That's a separate, we are not counting the bone broth or the fat, like the lard actually. It's just the fat that we leave in the meat and the pure meat.
Yep.
So, pigs. I'm sorry, pigs. We like pigs.
We love
like pigs.
pork.
All right. Our pigs, and we are going to go through all the variables after the numbers of how we got to these numbers for our animals and our land, and how you can then extrapolate that for you. So for our pigs, we butcher at 7 months, which gets us 90 pounds of meat per pig. That's 4 months of gestation, 3 months of nursing, and then we rebreed mama pig. So that puts us at a nice even 7 months. And then, of course, we raise those out to 7. It just happens to be 7 and 7, which is very clean and tidy. Okay, so you did this math, and I'm going to say what it is.
Yes.
Because it isn't a strict 12 months, it's not 5, it's not 6 months, it's not 12 months, it's a pig and some per year. So we have, each litter we keep 1 pig. That's 1 pig per litter per year is 142 pounds of meat. We hope that makes sense. Again, visual aids will help.
Is keeping constantly 1 pig. Just because it's not the same pig. One pig gets butchered, but another one is born.
Now, there is not room for 2 full growths of litters per year. So we have 1 and a remainder.
Yes.
So if we just do the math there, that's if we keep 1 pig from each litter per year, it's 142 pounds. We have landed on keeping 3 pigs per litter per year, which gives us 426 pounds of pork per year.
Yes.
Okay. Sheep. We like older sheep at a year old.
Hair sheep.
Oh, well, yeah, hair sheep.
Not the wool sheep.
Again, well, it will depend on your sheep, so that's a variable. But for the sheep that we intend to have, not our sheep, we don't have them yet, but we will. At a year old, approximately 40 pounds of yield. 5 months of gestation, again, 3 months of nursing, and then because, and I'll get into the dairy later, because I intend to milk some of them, there will be their 4th month of lactation will be when I milk them. I don't want to, because they're meat animals. I want them to grow their babies big and strong, so I won't hold them and milk them any earlier than that. And then at the end of that, we rebreed. And that gestation through to rebreeding is 9 months, which means once we get past like the first cycle, every 9 months we will be butchering 12-month-old sheep. Hopefully that makes sense as well. There were debates about our math many times. So let's see, that's 53 pounds of meat per ewe per year. Which means we are not eating the ewes, but that means that each ewe, mama sheep, can provide us, we're assuming they all have singles, they could have doubles, twins. We're going to go with just 1 for our numbers, which means each ewe is going to be able to give birth to enough sheep per year to provide us 53 pounds.
Yes.
Okay. That means we need a lot of sheep. This was our determining, this was a surprise in our math. The number of sheep concurrently alive at any one time. That's a lot.
Is
I don't
lot.
think, and this was something interesting. So we sat down to do all of this math over many days, many weeks. And we wanted to do this video, but we also wanted this information for ourselves. which was good because we were clearly very wrong. I thought we needed a handful of sheep. We need 11 ewes to get us 600 pounds of meat per year.
Yes.
Now, I guess we should backtrack for just a second. On the pigs, it's pretty simple. With these numbers, we have 1 boar, 1 sow. That's
Plus our
Yes.
our 3 piglets that we keep.
And then,
So that would be
more
a total of 5. When we get into the sheep,
well, we'd also have a new piglet batch. So you have
Right.
to think about how many animals you will have at your peak. So you will have a boar, a sow, 3 feeder pigs, and let's say 8 piglets. And that is your I lost fingers, but
yeah, and it cycles up and down.
but at your peak you'll have that many. Now sheep, I think we came up with our peak being 34 animals, which
You got
seems
your ram.
extreme.
You got your 11
Ewes.
ewes. You got your 11 lamb.
Yeah.
So now we're at
Or more, because someone's going to have twins.
or more. And you do have to occasionally account for a replacement ewe because animals.
You're going to want to keep, if there's a couple good ones, you're going to want to keep them and replace them at some point because they age.
Things happen.
Things happen.
So that's 23. And then because of the reproduction cycle before butchery, there could be another 11 plus.
It's a lot.
So you're really at 34 plus a few more. You're in the year like high 30s.
Now you made it worse. It's good.
It's just a go.
It's just a go.
So you're in your high 30s at a high number of sheepies running around going, "Mah!"
Okay. Shh. I don't love sheep. I just enjoy
The big problem-
eating them.
The big problem with the sheep is their sheepiness.
So we've got 11 ewes plus all the other
Right.
sheep. 600 pounds of meat.
Yes.
Now we get into our fowl.
Yes.
We will do chickens and ducks. All we intend to ever really do. Chickens and ducks. At 10 months old, they give about 2 pounds of meat. Honestly, the duck's probably a little more, the chicken's probably a little less. So on average, it's about 2 pounds.
Yeah.
We are going to hatch 30 eggs. I could figure out what to call them, birds. We're going to hatch 30 every 4 months. We are assuming 20 of those will live on because things
Past
happen.
the hatch rate, past early survival, past
All the things.
all the thing.
So we will have per type of bird, or should I just do total birds? Maybe that's easier.
Yeah, it's
We're
half
just going to do.
it's half chicken, half duck. We'll
We're
just
just
do
going to
total.
do total amounts. So we'll be hatching 60 birds per 4 months. Assuming 40 will live every 4 months, which gets us to 120 birds a year.
Now,
Wait,
we're going to do another whole video.
wait.
Oh.
Which is 240 pounds of meat per year.
Yes. We're going to do a whole video on the different life cycles, the paddock rotation,
If that's something that interests you.
where they go, how
yeah.
we use them, and they are useful in their other ways.
When we could do that for all of our animals and our plans for how we're going to cycle them around our property and be really strategic about that. So if that's something that interests you, let us know.
Subscribe.
So we can do that.
That video will come out.
All right, so that's our meat, which gets us to 1,266 pounds per year.
Yes.
If everything goes according to plan and nothing gets messed up.
Something always gets messed up.
I'm just gonna quickly go through eggs and dairy because those are animal products.
Yes.
Now, like I said, I don't know the plan with sheep. I have never milked a sheep. I guess I'd never milked a goat until a few years ago. But
She's eaten every sheep I've given her.
I don't love them. They're not my favorite animal.
They're very tasty.
They're very tasty. I don't know if I like sheep milk, but I like sheep milk cheese. So, I'm going to...
And as far as tasty, hair sheep versus wool sheep, if you don't know, have a distinct lack of lanolin in the hair sheep versus the wool sheep. The lanolin is what flavors the... If you've ever had old sheep
Mutton.
mutton,
I typically hate mutton.
It has a very intense, gamey sort of flavor. It's an acquired taste, I think. Hair sheep don't have it. They don't have the lanolin. Doesn't flavor the meat. It doesn't taste all gamey. So an older animal is just more fatty and rich and larger.
Yeah.
And as delightful as, say, a lamb was, but eating a lamb, where like you spend all that time and energy to get this tiny creature that is only like 10 pounds of meat or something. That seems like a waste to us.
So I will be milking sheep of some amount. We'll try it. And that's going to be, like I said, that that 4th month of lactation. Because while for goats, I'll start milking them right away. They're a milk animal. They're not a meat animal. I want them to put every single drop of milk into their babies so they can grow big and strong and tasty.
It makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference. So I'm just going to let them go for 3 months. And then that 4th month of lactation, I will milk. And whatever I get, and we like it or we don't like it.
Yeah.
Now, goats are our main, really only dairy animal. My plan is to have 6 does, and I'll breed them sort of in cycles of 3 and 3, which means that I basically want to always have milk.
Yes.
And I want an overlap once or twice a year where I have 6 in milk, which then is my big like cheese making extravaganza. But I don't want that all the time because
no, it's a lot of work.
There's a lot of other things to do, like processing animals, and I'm trying to
but between that and the sheep, that's like a twice a year like roller coaster surge.
Which is like big cheese making because cheese needs to sit anyway, and then hopefully that will work out.
Hopefully.
It's my plan. Eggs. So if we're going with our fowl, now our fowl are multi-purpose because we will have them as meat. We are not having separate flocks. I guess that's important to say. We do not have a laying flock and a meat flock. That is a long, complicated story we could go into again when we talk about our rotations of animals and things.
Yeah.
We are having one kind of bird, which is really a selection of birds. It's a cornucopia of bird genetics.
Cornucopia is a great word. We have wonderful levels of diversity in our chicken genetics.
So yeah, we're just gonna have one big flock, which means we get eggs from everybody, ducks and chickens. If we just wrote this down. I've already forgotten all of it. If we have 40 birds at a time laying, yep, we have to assume half of them are actually hens that are laying.
If we have 40
birds of laying age,
20 are female.
Cross your fingers.
Ish.
Cross your fingers. They will lay for 4 months before butchering. In those 4 months of laying, we should be getting 15 eggs a day. These are all, if you've ever had birds, you know it could be better or worse or different, or everybody could be eaten. Birds.
Yeah.
Which is 105 eggs a week, which seems ridiculous, and most people would be like, oh, that's too many. It's not too many.
We buy 60 eggs a week now.
And I would prefer if we bought 90, but we're on a budget. So we could easily go through 90 a week.
Yeah.
So 105 doesn't seem like that many.
Yeah. Oh, eggs here are $3 for a 30 pack. Yeah. Which I actually looked up in Korea, South Korea. They're $2.70 for a 30 pack. Strangely similar in the world.
Tangent, sir.
I won't tangent. I said I wouldn't tangent.
Well, you can tangent.
I've been prohibited from
tangenting. You went to
tangenting.
like Korea, and I was a very.
There's a whole egg
tangent.
discussion that needs to happen at some point about what's wrong with the price of eggs.
Tangent. So those are our numbers for our animals. Now, how does that apply to you? It might not apply to you because those are our animals for our family on our property in our climate.
Yes.
We're in southern Ecuador.
So we have like our pigs. They're our genetics of like a criollo, a more landrace sort of thing. And I'm going all the way back to the Iberian pigs that were brought over from Spain. We had the father was a cross between one of those and a
kind of commercial meat pig.
Nobody's quite sure. It was sort of a love tryst thing in the pig pen. He was a good pig.
That's fair.
But he was very large and very strong, very much meat, very curly hair.
We know, based off of our breed of pig, what our yield is, but also how they grow. So we've watched multiple litters now, and we've watched their growth, and they kind of plateau at 7 months. So we could keep them longer, but the feed to meat ratio was like, So really, they kind of hit a plateau. And I think we'd have to wait until like a year for them to really start growing again, and that's just too long for us.
It's another month or two of plateau, and then they'd start taking off again. And we have talked to people who've sold pigs to, and theirs have started getting much bigger.
But you have to look at the feed and whether that, both the feed and the space, do you want to tie up both of those things?
Space. Large pigs are a problem on our terrain. We have a lot of rain, we have a lot of slope, we have a lot of clay. This turns into a mucky...
Pigs, for the most part, are destructive creatures. Unless you have grazing pigs, then they're less destructive. We do not have those types of pigs. They like their face in the ground. As most pigs do. It's great. We can use them, but we have to be careful with our land.
Yeah.
Which is why we have to cap it at our 3 feeder pigs per litter.
Yeah.
Because realistically, that's pushing it. Any more than that, and we're going to have a really hard time with our land.
Yeah, we have roughly a 4-to-1 slope here for our whole property, more or less. Like, so we've gotten very used to living on this sort of slope. But once the pigs churn it up and the rain hits it, it is too steep and the water just starts to carry it away. So
when we decided originally, like, okay, we're going to figure out these numbers, you asked, well, how many pigs and how many, like, what's split of meat? And I said, I don't know. Because I really needed to do this math first to realize, while I would love to have half pork, half sheep, I can't because that's too many pigs for our land. So that's just like, if you'll notice, there is no cow on our list. Cow does not work on our land.
Yeah.
And also our situation.
The neighbors run cows, but they run them through a pasture on a hillside once a year.
Well, they use neighboring land.
And so they move the herd around to all of the available areas in the mountains. And they destroy it pretty hard, and the hoofs muck it out. Mm-hmm. Anywhere that they run cows, more often than that, and
it becomes,
every cow hoof mark becomes a water reservoir, which then soaks into the clay. The clay then becomes liquid. If grass doesn't grow fast enough, again, no cows, then it just starts to carry it away. If you let the land rest significantly, then the grass can come and sort of structure it, and then it washes in and it sort of self-fills in a little bit. Yeah, it's just here.
So as far as terrain goes, the sheep are a really good option for us. They are a smaller, lighter animal. They will do less damage to the land. They will also, and this gets into feed, which is another huge variable, this will allow us to raise a lot of meat with a very little cost input. Or
it's really just the care
input
and the housing and the moving taken care of. We don't have the feed input like with the pigs. With the pigs, we're either raising the feed, which is growing the feed.
Which we will, but it will then take a portion of our land to do that and a portion of our time to do that.
Or we're buying feed, which is a cost.
Yes.
So the sheep eat the stuff that grows naturally. So do the goats.
I mean, the pigs would probably be perfectly happy doing that, but they would need so much land to be able to live on nature.
We'd have to just turn them loose.
And that's terrifying. I don't want to do that. So that's kind of like your land. You have to look at your land, your soil, your terrain, what animals can you realistically have there.
Yeah. And your climate.
And your climate goes right along with
because we're warm year round, we don't have to there's lambing season a lot of places where you get one crop, one litter, what do you call it? Lambs? Batch?
I like all of them.
Bouquet of sheep? I don't know. Bowl, handful. Swarm? You can help out here.
No, I'm really enjoying this.
Anyway.
It's lambing. It's just a lambing.
It's a lambing. You get to do it once a year. We can shorten it to a more efficient period.
Just because we don't have the climate to worry about.
Yeah, it doesn't really, like, it's a little moister or a little not. It's not a huge...
no.
It's not a huge showstopper.
It also means that we don't have to worry about hay. So some people would say that it's not necessarily better to have sheep because you have to feed them hay, and that's something you have to buy as well. For us, we don't have to.
Overwintering animals is expensive.
And if you're overwintering, I don't think that your sheep and your pigs end up being terribly different as far as costs, because hay is outrageously expensive in most places. So because we can simply pasture them every single day of the entire year, that is free. I mean, there's effort, there's work, there's infrastructure, but once you are past the building and setting up infrastructure, you don't have a continuous consumable cost.
Yeah, some sheepy houses, big fenced area of the mountain. That's a lot of it right there.
Easy. So yeah, we talked about breeds a little bit as far as the sheep go. And now your yields are going to change a lot depending on your breeds. So if you don't know, it's going to be hard to do the math. I mean, I tried to do the math blindly before without knowing, and I was wrong. I know because I've done enough of our pigs to know what the yield is.
Yep.
I have only ever butchered 2 sheep in my life, so I'm remembering it's around 40 pounds. I'm going with that number because I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Different breeds are going to be different.
Sure. Some people say, well, like with pigs, well, you just get them bigger and there's more yield. Yeah. We, with our terrain and our abilities, kind of top out at about 200 pounds with our ability to deal with said pig.
Well, and so that's the next thing. Dealing with your animals. Both alive and not. Both alive and not. At one point, we ended up having a very long, complex conversation about how we could potentially be able to process a cow on our own. It was long, it was complicated, and there were ideas about trying to build a cooler. It was a lot. We like to do our own animals. I prefer processing my own, but the reality was it was too big. It was too much meat.
It's
as much meat as we eat.
So we're trying to go through the parts of like we have to slaughter.
We have to
we have to slaughter it. We have to deal with an animal. We can't lift it. So now we're basically either building apparatus to try to lift it or doing it on the ground. And then we get into breaking it down and the amount of time that takes. But then we have to try to chill that. And we're like, we don't have capabilities. We're like, we could try to build this custom thing to cool the meat to something. We don't have a cold room right now.
So one of the important things, I think, is to really look at your situation and what you can manage. Now, some people are like, well, I can't do anything.
We have a hand truck.
We use the hand truck a lot.
It was like the greatest $30 investment ever. Thanks, Grandma.
Oh, yeah.
Your mom bought it for us.
That's right.
We helped her move. She bought a hand truck, which we've used mercilessly since then. 200-pound pig fits on a hand truck. You strap it to it, and 2 people can just weasel it across our little paths and steps and stairs and things and other paths and down a hill. We can just manage to transit a 200-pound. I think we did 220.
Yeah.
One was a little bigger.
That's kind of our cap for size of animal.
Man, we were struggling to get that done.
So when we look at that, we just realize even if other things did not negate the idea of a cow,
like we could raise the pig to be bigger. We could go, oh, you should just raise your pig to 300 pounds, 400 pounds.
Well, there's lots of reasons not to do that.
There's not. But the biggest one is we just can't deal with it.
And sure, we could come up with a way to deal with it. But the reality is it's not really worth it for us. It's just not. So I think as far as other people go, if you have a tractor and you have flat land and you want cows, that's great. Beef's delicious. I love beef. But for us, for our land, for our capabilities, sheep is a much better option. It's just way better for us.
To be self-sufficient, to be less reliant on outside technologies and equipment and people and things, we literally just had to back it all down to a manageable size.
And that goes as well for we try to be self-sufficient in our breeding of our animals. So we want to have breeding stock for each kind of animal.
Yes.
Makes sense. I don't want a bull. I would never want a bull. I will never have a bull. It's not happening.
Keeping cattle is not one cow. It's
multiple cow
huge, plus a bull.
And they
and then you have other cows. And now you have a small herd. So around here, like we've watched the cows, and they'll go through a field of 5 foot tall, beautiful, thick, we call it corn grass. It's like corn stalks. And they will mow 30 acres down in a few days.
Week or something.
Yeah, 8, 10, 12 cattle, something like that.
Yep.
And it's gone. And then they got to move them. So they need that. They need 50 of those pastures a year.
Yeah. And as far as being self-sufficient with like the breeding, because people have asked, why with the pigs when we lost our boar, like, well, you could do AI. There's lots of reasons why we don't want to do that. There's just the physical capability of doing that with our particular pig. There is also, we are then dependent upon this outside system, which might be just fine, but I don't love it. I prefer to be able to play with the genetics within our breeding program.
Yeah.
And kind of hone in on what we want. When you're using AI, you may have the very best of breeds, but you have very, very pure breeds. We don't love pure breed animals. We like mutts.
We've had some, like, we'll get into the growth rates of our pigs. Our cross, when I looked at their early growth rates, we were beating the most prized commercial hog growth rates. Kept in a pen, the right temperature, fed antibiotics, all the food they can eat, like, they have a certain growth rate. We were beating it with some piglets in mud running around fields having a good old time, probably eating less food than we should have been feeding them.
So we like the kinds of breeds that we have sort of established. And in AI, you have very specific choices. And they tend to all be very purebred, which a lot of people want. We just aren't big on that.
And I've seen the catalogs. There's all the different commercial meat breeds. There's some local places, and even the government has AI programs for the Criollo. But they would be crossing the Criollo, which is the landrace, with the landrace. Unfortunately, there's almost no meat on them, and they are mostly fat. So
you'd have to cross with something else. It also just starts getting outside of our control.
Yep.
Then you're reliant on someone. You have to order it. You have to.
And then you go to call them again in 7 months, and the phone's disconnected, and they're gone.
Right? It's just that dependency on someone else. We're not big on it.
Or somebody mislabeled a thing, and you're like, well, why is it red and fuzzy and looks like Chewbacca?
I don't know. It might be great, but but we're just not big on depending on other people for that. So that's a lot of why we choose what we do. Just like we'll hatch all of our own eggs. We're not going to be buying chicks all the time, because then you are also introducing potential diseases that are out there that you don't want. We skipped over probably the most important variables. The most important things when you think about what animals to raise and how much of them. What do you eat? What do you want to eat?
It's true.
Some people don't like pork. I know you're crazy, but some people don't like pork, or they are allergic to pork, or they don't feel good eating pork. That's a whole other conversation we've talked about many times. Some people maybe don't like red meat and they just want more chicken. So it doesn't matter. You need to know what you and your family eat.
And then take those numbers and extrapolate in your environment, your conditions, your terrain,
yeah,
to back to get those numbers to meet. Otherwise, there's a disconnect of, well, this is what we actually eat, and this is what we're...
Well, and that's a lot of the homesteaders will say, like, oh, you know, you need this many pigs and this many cows. And they're like, well, that's fine, but I don't, like, for me, I'm like, well, that's fine, but how much pork are you eating a week? And how much beef are you eating a week? And I don't want to raise cows, so how many sheep? Will you eat this many sheep? It is different for every single family.
And every different piece of land and every different climate.
You have to really you're going to have to hone in on exactly what is right for you. As far as figuring out how much meat you eat in a week, you just have to pay attention. For one, you have to cook your own food.
I mean, if you're just buying it, you could literally just keep a tally of all the meat you buy for a month.
If you're cooking your own food. If you're going out to eat,
then you have to...
you're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And maybe what you're eating is not what you want to be eating. And that may be a big part of it. Like for us, we aren't eating as much meat as I would prefer to be eating. So we can look at that and be like, I want to up that in an ideal world. These are our goal numbers.
There was some research. Meat consumption was linked to longevity and overall health, energy levels, things, contrary to disease prevalence. There was a lot of positive correlations to eating more meat across different cultures in the world.
And you will find numbers to support whatever you believe. We are simply choosing the direction that makes us happiest and feel best.
Yeah.
If for you that is, you want to eat like 2 pounds of meat a week, then you have it much easier and you don't have to raise as many animals.
You could have a flock of quinoa and asparagus.
Or you could simply have like 1 pig a year.
Sure.
And so you just have to look at what you need, what you like, and then figure out how to get there.
Yep.
Don't eat the dog.
All right.
Again, if you wanted a video on kind of our plans for rotating pastures, paddocks, areas, runs, I can't come out with all that.
How to use the animals in a positive way to affect the land, to reduce bugs, to keep down vegetation.
Together, sort of the permaculture concept.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We're going to get on it.
We will put that video together if that's something that interests you.
If you have questions, things that were clear as mud soup that we may have talked about, please, we go through the comments. My wife actually does all of the typing because I'm liable to go off on some sort of like rage-fueled rant about a thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Everything that you read on there is her. I'm just saying this for legal reasons. None of it was me. I didn't do it. I'm not sure what was said, but it was all her. It's actually really nice. She does a good job. So please ask questions and she'll get to it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next one.